Hello, boys. Welcome. I say welcome. Okay, to be fair, right? Okay, so somebody did ask me if I'm gonna put out a guide for my Jiyan, right? I know what, maybe I should. It's like, because I see a lot of people building him wrong, even though it's not that difficult, right? So I'll go over a few things in this video, right? First of all, I will talk about, first of all, I'll just show my Jiyan. Maybe you'll see my Jiyan, you'll be, no, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? This is my stats, by the way, on Jiyan, if you're curious, right? Then I'll tell you what weapon to use. I'll be honest, there's not that many options. And then, lastly, I'll talk about the echoes themselves. So, let's get into the video. Okay, so for showcasing him, right, I'm gonna kill Thundering Memphis. As you can see, I don't have a team on the side, right? This is not a team video, right? Obviously, if you use a team, you can get your numbers up like fucking 3 times higher, right? This is not the point. I'm also not using any buff items, right? This is just purely my Jiyan build here, okay? So let me get into this. Essentially, Jiyan is very easy to play. Like, holy shit. Like, he's so fucking simple to play, right? The only complicated thing about him is his resonance bar. It's like, if your resonance bar is not stacked up, right, your E will do 20% less damage, and your ultimate will not do damage with its initial cast. Now it's gonna do damage. So you can see it's level 55, so it's on my resonance level, right? That's like, and this is considerably probably slow that I killed him. As you can see, like Union 36, Soul Phase, rank 4, right? So that's how long it takes me to kill it, right? I don't know if you're satisfied with this performance. I'd say my Jiyan is fairly well built. There's a lot of place for improvement, right? Before I go into that, right, few last notes, right? I only have advancement 1 on him, okay? Like this one. But I'll be honest, this one doesn't really like affect him that much. It just basically makes his gives him a second cast of his skill, and it consumes less resolve. Resolve is the bar at the bottom, so it's like each step up of that is like 30 energy. So something to keep in mind, right? If you have only 30 energy, right, like if you don't have any energy when you cast your ultimate won't do an initial damage hit, right? For your E, if you don't have resonance, your E is gonna deal 20% less damage. That's the only complicated thing about him. Everything else is pretty easy, right? He's the storm that is approaching. So I mentioned build that it could be better, right? So let me go straight into his echoes. Okay, so let's get into the important part of the build, and that's the echoes, right? So this is my Jiyan's base stats, right? Those are not the most important stats. The most important stat is essentially this, the aero damage bonus. You always want to cap this out. This is what makes you hit the hardest, okay? So if you're seeing your numbers in double digits, right, check if this number is up, okay? That sounded passive aggressive, I'm sorry. So for your echoes, right, you'll want to go full aero set. It simply works the best, right? For damage dealers, you'll always go like a full elemental set. You're always gonna go 4-3-3-1-1, right? Don't pay attention that my echoes are golden, right? If you don't have golden echoes, use purple, use blues, right? I'm just telling you what to look out for, okay? So it's like, it doesn't matter what stage in the game you are, you can follow this across. It to an extent, it might be harder because I think at lower data bank you only have 10 energy, but this is something to work for, right? You're not gonna have perfect echoes from the start. It's just guidelines. So your main one is basically always gonna be a 4 coster. In some cases you can use a 3 coster, right? If you really prefer it, right? The 4 coster, like this monkey that is gonna be always used like on Jiyan, it just does super fucking high damage. For the other ones, right? Essentially look what you can find, right, that fits the set. For one main stats, right? That's important. So for 1 cost, it's gonna be attack percent. That's it. It's just attack percent, right? For 3 cost, it's aero damage bonus. Let me put it this way. If you have this as attack, right, fucking delete it. I'm sorry, but like delete it. Like this is the only place where you can get aero damage bonus, right? And this is where you want to get your aero damage bonus. You get it as a main stat from your 3 cost echoes. So Then for the 4-coster, right, you have 2 options for main stats, crit rate or crit damage. Now, depending on which one you get, it will depend on your crit rate. So I'm using crit rate main one because my weapon gives me crit damage. If your weapon doesn't give you crit rate, go for crit rate as well. Only in the case where your weapon is giving you crit rate, go for crit damage. Or if if you're a more advanced player, you can build around it, and even without using the crit main stat, right, you can still build something that can use crit damage, and you're gonna be hitting fucking tons, right? I hit harder with this, but I do lose like 30% crit rate, so it's not worth it for me. Now, for substats, right, this is important, right, because substats are like the really big part when building. So priority, right, from highest to lowest, right? So we're gonna start with crit rate. Crit rate is the highest priority. You want to see crit rate on all of these. So in my case, I have crit rate on everything except the main one. So like here, besides getting it as a main stat, you can also get crit rate again here as a substat. Okay? I think I actually have an example that I could show you. It's on my Calchero. Yeah. So as you can see here, I have crit rate here and crit rate here. This is how you get like a huge portion of your crit rate, right? So that's pretty good. It gives you some flexibility room. So crit rate is always going to be priority. Look for on it for like all of your pieces, right? I think the lowest is going to be 5%. The highest you can get is 10%. So look for crit rate. Second priority, crit damage. Crit damage is always going to be second priority because, if you're critting, right, you want your crit damage as high as possible because it multiplies your damage. Crit damage, crit rate is like the most important stat after elemental bonus. Then after that, the third place is energy regen and attack. Energy regen, self-explanatory. The more energy regen you have, the faster you can ult. For attack, right, the higher your attack is, the more additive damage you'll get. It's not multiplicative, it's additive. So 2000 attack would lose to 80% arrow damage plus like 1200 attack, right? So keep in mind, having attack is good, but attack isn't the main priority. Now, for the last stat, preferably it's heavy attack. Honestly, heavy attack should probably go alongside attack energy regen, simply because when you ulti, all of your attacks are considered heavy attacks now, so you do the most damage that way. But together with heavy attack, you get stuff like basic attack damage, resonance liberation damage, resonance damage, all that shit, right? And then after that, it's all the other stats. So try to get them in this priority, prioritize them like that. Always go for high crit rate. Crit rate is the most important one, right? So make sure you have it on every piece. Sometimes, you might not get the best crit rate piece, and you might go for, you might have something like crit damage, attack, energy regen, heavy attack, right? So it might beat it out in that point, but keep in mind, right, the highest you can go without a crit weapon and without any food items, right, is like 70%. So try to aim for that. Like anything above 50%, I think is good. If you're below 50%, well, it's not really that optimal. So we need to discuss his weapon options, okay? So realistically, the best weapon for him is obviously his main weapon, okay? It's like, but this is not gonna be an option for everyone. Some of you are not gonna have his weapon. So the next best option is having a weapon that has crit rate instead of crit damage. I think you get one from the Insider channel. If that is also not an option, third in place is gonna be one that has energy regen. I think there is one like that. I sadly do not have one that has energy regen, but that's like the third in place because he likes using his ultimate. Like his ultimate buffs him a lot, so that's really good. Then fourth in place is gonna be anything with attack percent, and I'll be honest, that's it. There's no fifth in place. Defense is like really bad. You could use this, right? But it's a filler. Like you ultimately want to replace this. Like defense does not work good for him. He doesn't have any defense scalings. He's like So that's kind of the order you should go for them. So pick whatever you have. Obviously, if you really invested into him, I'd say pulling for this is really worth it. This is useful not just on him. You can also use this, switch it out, use it on Calchero, right? Anyone that uses broadsword can use this, and it's gonna work well on them. Okay, so before before I talk if he's worth it, right, I'll give you one more sample how a full team would work with him, right? So this is just a sample team, right? Don't take it too hard. I'm not saying this is the best team to use on him, right? I'm just putting it the way you want to use this, right? So you're gonna use something like ideally a healer, right? You want a healer on a healing set, right? Because when they use upon healing, allies increases attack of the entire team, really big. Then you'll want something or like a sub DPS, right? Not a main DPS, like a sub DPS, right? Ideally, the sub DPS is gonna be on energy regen, because after you switch them out, the attack of the next resonator is gonna, you know, increase. So in this case, you know, Jiyan. So let me show you how all of it together works. Okay, so essentially we're gonna do Memphis again. So honestly, it's probably gonna be slower because I'm basically just gonna try to optimize for damage right now. Okay. Okay, perfect. And now Jiyan, his ultimate ability for 15,000. As you can see, right, like damage wise it wasn't even close. Like before, I think Jiyan's ultimate hit for like 5,000, now it hit for like 15,000. So, you know, when you use him in a full team, right, it's a completely different view. This is kind of how you do your rotations, right? The reason why I'm showing this, right, is because like a lot of people, right, are afraid to use other characters because they don't have them built, right? You don't even need to build them. Like, okay, look at my Jiyan, right? Look at her stats. This is honestly fucking shit. Like the only ones, like, look at this. +0 crit damage, right? These are all, like, well, this one is plus, but some of these are actually plus, but that's not really the point for, like, look, Jiyan is level 40. Baiji is level 40, right? Let me see. Baiji is, like, full healing set on like +0. Like these are all +0, right? So what I'm trying to say is don't be afraid to use suboptimal shit on your entire team, right, to make your damage dealer shine, because the most important things ultimately are like having rejuvenating glow increases attack of the entire team. Then you have Moonlit Clouds. Upon using outro skill, increases attack of the next resonator. So when you use the, you know, the intro skill switch out, this is basically what's gonna happen, right? So, you know, just even if the other characters are built like shit, right? As long as you have one character built greatly, you will be very successful. Don't go spreading your resources thin. Just just invest everything into one character for now, so you can efficiently farm for the other characters. So, you know, that's it. Now, the question is he worth it? I'd say yes and no. I think it's more worth it for the people that like the more simple gameplay, and you know, they want to be rewarded for not doing too much. And also, if you like his aesthetics, right? I don't think he's necessarily the best character in the game. That's why I think you can kind of skip him, right? He doesn't do like things much better than someone like Calchero, right? Calchero, like the only difference between them is like if you're fighting against someone that is you know, strong against lightning, right? You could use him. If you're fighting someone that's strong against wind, you could use Calchero, right? They're kind of interchangeable. I think that Calchero is simply harder to play, but I also think that if you're playing Calchero optimally, you're gonna get more damage out of him than you do from Jiyan. Jiyan is ultimately very simple to play. I think as far as his like banner and weapon goes, right, I think his weapon is actually more worth than him as a character, because the broad blade can be used on any other character that uses broad blade. So namely you could use it on Calchero, right? And it's a crit damage weapon, so it's gonna work very well. So I use it interchangeably between Calchero and him. I don't use them in the same team together, so you know, that works out for me. Yeah, ultimately, right, the decision is up to you. I think he's a good character, but he's by no means a must-have. So if you don't really like him, right, feel free to skip him. He is actually quite free-to-play friendly. I think he's really good even without having wave bans. Like he has some wave bands that are really big and increase his damage by quite a lot, but it's not essential to have wave bands to have for him to be good. So, you know, that said, you choose if you like him or you don't like him. It goes either way. But that's kind of my showcase of what I have built on him and what I think about him. I think he's a really fucking good damage dealer. I'm glad I pulled him. For some of you, you might not, share the sentiment. That's okay. He's not a super game breaking character. He's simply a really good character, right? So when he rotates out, right, you don't need to feel bad for not having him. He's gonna fall off eventually. If he was, that's usually just how it goes with these games. So that said, right, I hope you have a good morning, day, evening, night, whatever you're having. I hope you have a good one. Till next time.